The strangest thing is not that some babies calm down around Dad. It's that they seem to become someone slightly different in his presence. Maybe your baby has been unsettled for a while, not screaming, not melting down, just stuck in that tight, half-open state that never quite softens. In Mom's arms, the baby still clings, still grips, still stays a little folded inward, as if wanting comfort but not yet able to fully rest inside it. The body wants safety, but something in it is still holding back. Then Dad steps in, and the change is not always silence. Sometimes the baby lifts their head, sometimes their eyes brighten, sometimes their shoulders loosen, sometimes they stop folding inward and start reaching outward again. They look around, they kick harder, they lean farther, they laugh bigger, or they dare to touch the world again. That is the part people miss, because the deeper question is not always, why did Dad calm the baby? Sometimes it is, why did Dad make the baby open? Healthy Children notes that fathers often interact with children in more stimulating, vigorous, and exploratory ways, which helps explain why some babies may seem to open differently around them. If you care about the hidden emotional logic behind your baby's behavior, subscribe to Baby Cues Decoded, where we decode the moments families feel deeply but don't always know how to explain. Because some of the most important things babies show us do not arrive as obvious signals. Sometimes they appear in a tiny shift, a body that stops guarding itself and starts coming alive again. Harvard describes these back and forth exchanges between babies and caregivers as serve and return, a pattern that helps build the foundations of brain development. Before we go any further, we need to make this title true. What a loving father gives a baby that no one else can does not mean a father is the only one who can love, soothe, bond, or matter. It does not mean mothers are replaceable. And it does not mean fathers are somehow superior at attachment. What it means is more subtle than that. In many families, the presence of a loving father brings a very particular developmental texture, a different combination of sensory cues, a different rhythm of play, a different kind of challenge, a different kind of steadiness, a different emotional atmosphere. And sometimes that changes what the baby feels able to become in that moment. What a loving father gives is not always more love. Sometimes it is a different kind of relational space that changes what the baby feels able to become. AAP and Healthy Children emphasize that both parents bring different strengths, while WHO's Nurturing Care Framework highlights that healthy development grows through responsive caregiving from the important adults around a child. Babies do not become who they are in isolation. They become who they are inside relationships. Inside repeated moments of care, a baby learns, I can signal. Someone responds. The world can be handled. My feelings do not have to swallow me whole. I can fall apart and still be brought back. That is why a baby does not simply grow up from the inside out. A baby is shaped from the outside in, through thousands of small interactions that teach the body what safety, expectation, and connection feel like. Babies do not become through instruction first. They become through relationship. Harvard Center on the Developing Child describes serve and return interactions as a foundation for building brain architecture, and the AAP's early relational health work describes early relationships as biological necessities for healthy growth and development. So what kind of pattern can a father bring? Often, though not always, fathers hold differently, move differently, speak differently, pace interaction differently. And very often, They bring more physicality and more exploration into the moment. That does not automatically make fathers better at soothing, but for some babies, it changes the emotional architecture of the interaction. The body may feel less emotionally crowded. The movement may feel clearer. The rhythm may feel easier to map. The invitation may feel less like, settle down right now, and more like, come into this pattern with me. For some babies, that matters more than adults realize. A loving father may not change the baby by loving harder. He may change the baby by offering a different pattern the baby can grow inside. Healthy Children notes that fathers often engage children in more stimulating, vigorous, and arousing ways, and that fathers are important not because they are just like mothers, but because in some ways they are different. For some babies, what a loving father gives is permission to be more fully in the body. Not smaller, not flatter, not quieter, more physical. They kick harder, squirm more, laugh louder, bounce bigger, use more of themselves. And adults often misread that. They think the baby is getting more wound up, more overstimulated, more out of control. But sometimes the opposite is happening. Sometimes the baby is finally feeling held by a body, rhythm, and energy that can contain that much aliveness without shutting it down too quickly. That is why this moment can look so strange from the outside. The baby does not necessarily become more peaceful in the way adults expect. The baby becomes more embodied. Some babies do not become smaller in the presence of a loving father. Some babies become more fully in their bodies. AAP materials on play emphasize that play within safe relationships supports social emotional development and self-regulation, which fits this idea that physical openness can itself be a form of safety. And sometimes what changes around a loving father is not simply the baby's level of calm. It is the baby's willingness to move outward. A baby who feels safe with dad does not always cling more tightly. Sometimes the safer thing is the opposite. The baby looks up, looks around, leans farther, reaches for something just beyond the body holding them, moves a little farther away, then checks back in, tries, pauses, returns. That is what real safety can look like. Not constant contact, but confident return. The baby is not exploring because dad matters less. The baby is exploring because dad feels steady enough to leave and come back to. Sometimes babies become more exploratory around dad, not because they need him less, but because they trust his return. Attachment frameworks describe caregivers as both a secure base for exploration and a safe haven under stress. And the AAP's early relational health work describes early relationships as biological necessities for healthy growth and development. There is another kind of safety that matters just as much, and it is quieter. Some babies do not only become calmer with a loving father, they become more willing to try. They reach again after missing. They stay in the moment a little longer after frustration. They wobble, protest, recover, and re-engage. They do not always collapse at the first edge of difficulty. That is a very deep form of safety. Not just, I can be comforted here, but I can be challenged here and still come back to myself. A loving father may not only comfort a baby, he may help a baby become someone who can try, fail, and come back. Reviews of father-child play suggest that the quality of father's play and responsiveness is linked to children's self-regulation and social-emotional outcomes, and that fathers can make distinct contributions through challenge and recovery cycles in play. And for some babies, the change is even more specific than that. They become differently regulated. The voice may be lower, the rhythm may be simpler, the hold may be firmer, the movement may be broader. the response may feel less layered, less hurried, less crowded. And for a baby whose nervous system is searching for a usable pattern, that can matter more than adults realize. Sometimes a baby becomes calmer around dad, not because he matters more, but because his voice, touch, and rhythm are easier to use in that moment. Research in preterm infants found that both mothers' and fathers' infant-directed speech influenced infant behavioral state. And reviews of father-infant skin-to-skin contact report positive physiological and behavioral effects as well. That makes this moment scientifically plausible in a very concrete way. Sometimes the baby is not only responding to dad as a person, but to the sensory route dad's body creates. And this is the part mothers deserve to hear clearly. If your baby becomes more open, more daring, or more regulated in some ways with dad, it does not diminish mom. It may simply show that one baby can grow through more than one form of love. In many families, mom is still the deepest place of return, the biggest release, the most repeated care, the most familiar rhythm, the body the baby has known the longest and needed the most. So if dad becomes the place where a baby explores more, moves more, or settles through a different route, that does not erase the mother-child bond. It simply means babies may use different caregivers for different forms of safety. And UNICEF all emphasize that children develop through safe, stable, nurturing, and responsive relationships over time, not through one perfect parent or one perfect style. So what do you do with this tonight? Stop comparing. Start observing. Ask better questions. What does this baby do more easily with dad? More movement? More exploration? An easier recovery after frustration? A calmer body? A freer laugh? Healthy Children encourages parents to try different soothing approaches and notice what fits their individual baby, while responsive caregiving frameworks from WHO and UNICEF emphasize noticing a child's signals and responding in ways that match the child's state. Research also suggests that mothers and fathers often use different soothing strategies over time, which means one parent does not need to copy the other exactly to be effective. So let dad build his own regulation map. Let mom stop translating difference into failure, and build a family map of safety instead. Do not ask, who matters more? Ask, who helps this baby become what and how? Of course, if calming difficulties come with feeding problems, extreme sleep disruption, inconsolable crying, signs of reflux or illness, or developmental concerns, talk with your pediatrician. And if you have concerns about milestones or loss of skills, CDC's guidance is simple. Don't wait. So the next time you see your baby become something different around dad, don't rush to turn that moment into a comparison. Sometimes it is not proof that one parent matters more. Sometimes it is simply the beautiful evidence that a baby can grow in more than one loving direction.